Excelsior, true believers! You are about to embark upon a journey, a trip to the 70s and 80s when mighty Marvel Comics ruled over all. The Defenders, Doctor Strange, the Champions, Deathlock, the Submariner, the Incredible Hulk, Killraven, the Son of Satan, the Macabre Man-Thing, and all your other Bronze Age favorites every week appearing on Defenders Dialogue. Now here are your guides, Christopher Golden and Brian Keene.
Excelsior, true believers.
Excelsior indeed, and welcome back once again to Defenders Dialogue. I'm Brian Keene.
I'm Christopher Golden, and Brian, we have a returning guest.
We do. Joining us once again this week, author and podcaster and Defenders Dialogue engineer Matt Wildasin, here to promote his brand new book. Matt, go away. Go away.
Oh, you want me to promote it right now?
I want my brain combined. Go ahead and take it away. It came out.
Go away. I believe we call that a Freudian slip, Brian. What is the problem with Matt?
Well, I guess maybe you guys should just do the show. Brian doesn't want me here.
Look, I'm gonna warn listeners in advance. I am not on my A game today. I have workmen upstairs building a brand new bathroom between me and Mary's office. And when I say brand new bathroom, I mean just that. I mean, it was a gutted, empty space. Even the flooring and the walls were ripped out. So they're doing that. I've been displaced here to the kitchen.
A hole in the floor?
Yeah, before that. No, we have two bathrooms, Chris.
I know. I mean, I think when you talk about where you live, people imagine that it's like the Unabomber's residence. And I just feel like, because Brian's like, I live in a van down by the river.
But yeah, that's going on. And so I've been displaced to the kitchen, which means I'm close to the pine trees out back, which means my allergies are out of control. And now Matt's here. And anyway,
and that makes it worse. Wine.
Oh my God.
Take it away.
Well, I'll save talking about my book to the end of the show like we normally do, but I'm really glad you guys had me back again. I love the issues that we're going to be covering today. Especially, I guess we're going to start with the Daredevil 110 here.
That's right, Daredevil 110, written by Steve Gerber.
Yes.
And drawn by Gene Colan, one of Chris' favorites. We've talked about that many times on the show.
Yep.
An important creative cornerstone in your development, Chris.
Listen, let's talk about Gene just for a second. I mean, with inks by Frank Chiaramonte, by the way. But Gene, the thing is, Gene drew some of the seminal runs on Iron Man, the Submariner, Daredevil especially, so much other stuff, and of course, Tomb of Dracula, every issue of Tomb of Dracula. One of the greatest moments of my career was being able to write a comic that was drawn by Gene Colan. I mean, like, if I made a top 3 list, that would definitely be on the top 3 list. So I just always love anytime we have an opportunity to read a comic drawn by Gene, and you look at it and you think two things. It doesn't look, unlike almost everybody else, it looks totally unique. And I think the only other person you could say that about in the Marvel stable at the time, well, not at the time, but during that era, is Kirby.
Agreed.
Lots of people like Brian, I know you and Snagosky, and, you have more experience looking at the various artists, and you can say, oh, I think that's Sal Buscema. I think that's, whoever you might say. But even the casual reader of Marvel Comics in this era would say that's Colan, because no one else drew like him.
Agreed.
Just incredible. So, but I also want to say something I neglected to say last episode, and it was brought to mind by the cover of Daredevil 110. because I'm seeing this fantastic action cover with Daredevil fighting the agents of Black Spectre. And it's the Black Spectre agents in their weird, green and yellow uniforms with their weirdo, yellow sort of gas mask helmet, things. It's hard to describe this. But the thing that really kind of blows my mind is this organization is called Black Spectre. What about these stupid uniforms suggests anything remotely like Black Spectre as the name of the organization?
Well, Chris,
where is their marketing team?
Obviously, these costumes are more inconspicuous.
But I mean, like, it's just there's nothing remotely spectral about it, and the costumes are yellow and green instead of black. What is going on? It's like, hey, let's design, generic. It's not AIM and it's not Hydra. Let's design another generic group for the Marvel Universe. What are we going to call them? Let's look at this uniform. Oh, I know what. These guys look like they should be called Black Spectre. Anyway.
Well, like I said last week, I much prefer the incarnation of Black Spectre that becomes one of Moon Knight's Rogues Gallery members in the 80s, which spun off from this. But I mean, look, if you've been listening to this show for the last 4 or 5 years, however long we've been on, I am an unabashed Steve Gerber fanboy. This was not Steve Gerber at his best.
But it's fun.
Oh, it's great fun.
Oh, it is fun, yeah.
But more than ever, with this plot line, you really get the sense of he's making it up as he goes along. And historically, at the time, he's writing Daredevil. He's writing 2-in-1. He's writing The Defenders. He's writing Shanna the She-Devil, which just got canceled. Think he's done with Man-Thing by this point. But he's got so many deadlines and so much going on. And you can tell he's just like, fuck it. I'll just have everything cross over in every book I'm writing.
Yeah. Well, also, let me say in Gerber's defense, from the one time I worked with Gene, I can tell you it's entirely possible that Gene decided that a certain scene that Gerber wrote to be 2 pages, Gene was going to make 6 pages. And then another scene he was going to summarize in a page. Gene was just drawing the story as he saw it. And so I will say this, the issue looks great. I mean, if you look at, the first few pages, Ben and Daredevil are flying in the Fantastic Car, and, Daredevil's basically like figuring out, I think I know who Black Spectre's leader might be based on what Ben tells him. So Daredevil just jumps out of the Fantastic Car, and that art is so gorgeous, that especially that panel of Daredevil flipping over and over down, it's just beautiful. This is, I cannot say enough about Gene Colan. And when Daredevil lands, he immediately sees 2 prowlers. Nope, they're not ordinary burglars. They're 2 people wearing the idiotic costumes of Black Spectre.
Yep. And when he unmasks one of them, now keep in mind, Daredevil is blind. He can tell that it's a woman under the mask, but what we, the reader, can see, and he can't, is that the woman is tattooed very distinctly. And Chris gave it away last week, and we're going to give it away here. Spoiler, it's our old friend, the Mandrill, who listeners will remember from that very long, very drawn-out saga in The Defenders.
Yeah. Brian, you make fun of this issue, but I feel like I love the fact that Gerber has thrown literally everything into the pot in this issue.
I do too. It just it feels
like we go from the rushed Fantastic Car with Ben Grimm to Daredevil flipping down, fighting Black Spectre, capturing these 2 women, bringing them to the police station, and then Shanna the She-Devil comes in civilian clothes for 2 seconds,
Yeah.
At which point, the two women who were captured, who were Black Spectre agents, blow themselves up.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
And we then go back to Black Spectre's headquarters, where Necra, the priestess of death, is pleased at this, and we see that she still has Black Widow under their power. They go to the leader's den. As we said, the leader is the Mandrill. And, you know,
Matt,
fast
I
forward.
know you enjoyed this. Brian is summarizing this, which I'm fine with, but jump in.
Yeah, go ahead. You know what? I don't know.
No, I see where everyone's coming at with this. What I loved about this issue is, you know, we said we're starting off, we're in the Fantasticar, and then we just have all this other crazy stuff going on. And then we get to, like, you know, Murdoch's apartment, and Black Spectre's in there, and Matt has this whole, like, oh, I got to cover my ass, because if I'm like, what are you doing in my apartment, then he'll know it's me. So he's like, what are you doing in Matt Murdoch's apartment?
Right.
But he's like, no, we don't have to stand on ceremonies here, Daredevil. I know who you are. And then he's like, I'm the Mandrill. So it's a lot to take in. But then we get, like, the super, super depressing backstory of the Mandrill and Necra. And this is, I've never seen a comic start off so lighthearted, and then it just slams you in the face with this really heavy backstory that also mirrors current day racism and everything else. Like, it's really kind of great how they managed to weave it in here, I think.
Yeah, it's really grim, and actually, I don't think I knew any of it. So I was really glad to encounter it here, because I was like, oh, I certainly didn't know that, what's her name?
Necra.
I didn't know their connection at all. We'll get to in a second. Also, did we even mention that Black Widow is in this issue? As
we did.
she's being mind controlled by the Mandrill. But anyway, Matt, do you want to sum up the backstory that we learn here?
Well, it was, I'm going to make sure I do this justice. We find out that the Mandrill's father basically worked in this, I guess, a plant that had radioactivity, like, in it, and it blew up one day. And they summarized basically, like, well, back then they had no idea what radioactivity could do to people. So, you know, my mom and my dad had me, and I ended up being a small ape boy that was black skinned. And then Necra's parents were black parents, and they had her, and she was a pale vampire-like child. And, you know, they both lived on different sides of the tracks, but they both dealt with the same, like, bullying growing up, because Necra lived in a predominantly black neighborhood, and Mandrill lived in a predominantly white neighborhood. And so one day, Mandrill's dad just drives him out into the desert and just is like, get out, and leaves him there.
Well, again,
wow.
Yeah, well, it's like Hansel and Gretel, isn't it? It's like,
yeah,
you know, we should say, so it was an atomic research facility.
That's what it was.
Mandrill's father was a scientist, and Necra's mother was the cleaning lady, which, because in the 70s, we still were seeing black women portrayed as cleaning ladies, and she couldn't have been the scientist. I mean, she could have been, but, you know, in the thought process of those days, it was more typical to present. But that said, it is, yeah. So both of them were outcasts in their own communities, and Mandrill's father drives him out into the desert when he's like a teenager, basically, because he looks like a fucking Mandrill.
Yeah,
and just abandons him there. And Necra had run away, and the two of them encounter one another in the desert. Now, that seemed to be awfully convenient for me, but let's chalk it up to fate. Let's just say it's destiny. Right
train, right time.
Exactly. So they become basically hobos together, riding the rails. And then they're captured by, or they're assaulted by this group of, I don't know, armed rednecks or something.
Pretty much, yeah.
Yeah. And then we find out that Necra, when she's basically powered by hate or strong emotion, she has superpowers.
Yeah. Yeah, she can overload things with hatred essentially and like degrade them or change them into like, because the one guy's like pitchfork wilts stabbing into her and everything. So what I have to say, when Mandrill explains his power, I laughed, not because of how it's kind of like it is a tad bit ludicrous, his power.
Yeah.
But just the way the panels worked for this, because they have this close up of his face and it's like this black, background, and he's explaining like, oh, well, maybe, I had power over her from the start because that's my special ability. Like women, like I can control women with my thoughts and like they do anything I want. And then you go to like the next panel and Mandrill's just standing there. He's got his arms folded and he just has this look where he's like looking at Daredevil. He's like, yeah, well, what do you think about that? That's pretty hot, huh? but you bet you wish you could do that, don't you?
When the Defenders fought Mandrill, and we covered it on this show. I can't remember if it was Chris or myself, but we said he's an incel supervillain.
Yeah.
But I had never read his origin before prep for this show. I thought he was a lame supervillain when he fought the Defenders. I think he's even lamer now. And I think what frustrates me is it's one of those rare moments where, in my opinion, Gerber swung for the fences and just didn't quite hit the home run. I mean, it's beautiful here what he was going for. This one caption, a black white boy and a white black girl, both ostracized, both learning the same ugly lesson about America. I mean, he's almost there.
Yep.
But then you just get these dumb powers.
Yeah. Well, not only do you get these dumb powers, but can we just say and again, Gerber was a great writer and all this stuff. And look, people are still making mistakes like this. I probably have made mistakes like this as well, trying to do something interesting or smart. But he says the Mandrill was a black white boy. Well, he wasn't. He had brown skin and he soon grew fur. And then his face developed to look like an ape. So I find this problematic.
Very gently.
And so thank God we relegate this story to the 70s. And I hope that if anybody decides to use the Mandrill in modern day Marvel, they would find a different approach to the character. And then I guess we wrap this issue by saying it's one of those issues that you would get in sort of ongoing comics in those days where the fight is interrupted, the Mandrill escapes, and that's the end of the issue.
Pretty much, yeah.
They're like, the fight starts, goes for a couple pages, the Mandrill escapes, and then he's gone until he shows up in some other Marvel comic sometime.
Yeah.
Yeah, which I found interesting. But in any case, shall we move on?
We should. Marvel 2-in-1, issue number 4, The Thing and Captain America, also written by Steve Gerber, art by my favorite Sal Buscema, and it says The Thing and Captain America on the cover, but that really does it a disservice because it's basically The Thing and half the fucking Marvel universe in this issue.
Right. Well, and I think that's the thing about this series, right? Marvel 2-in-1 was always like, just bouncing around with like whoever shows up,
Yep. Hey, I just got an emergency text from Mary Sangiovanni. It's actually like a legit family emergency happening live. I'm going to let you guys start the coverage here, and I'm going to go call her, and I'll be right back.
Go do that. We will.
Right.
And that's perfect, Matt. You know why?
Why is that?
Because now we can mock Wondar without Brian trying to defend him.
I love how this issue starts.
I love it too. I love this whole story. And in fact, previously, I think I hadn't read these earlier issues, or maybe I had, but I had just ignored Wondar because I'd read later issues where I was like, well, this is stupid. I don't know what this character's deal is.
Yeah.
But now going back to reading these early ones and really understanding Wondar, this is hysterical.
Yes, it is absolutely
Go ahead.
hysterical.
You start. Well, so we should say it's written by Gerber with art by Brian Keene favorite Sal Buscema and inks by Frank Shakoa.
Okay. So Doomsday 3014, that's the issue. And we start off with Thing and Wondar, and they're like at a carnival. And it's just this back and forth banter of the Thing just being like, why do I have to do this? I'm like a glorified babysitter. Mm-hmm. And, you know, it's all like he's blaming Reed a lot for a lot of the things that's going on. And
he blames Reed for everything.
Yeah, pretty much.
Is, you know, he's always frustrated that he looks like this and that Reed somehow has not been able to fix him yet. And so he blames Reed for everything. But let's take a step back and say, so it's the Central Park Zoo.
Yes.
And he's got Wondar by the hand, strolling hand in hand, like
yes,
like he's hauling a recalcitrant toddler behind him.
And Wondar's got this balloon.
And Wondar is in his Wondar has a balloon, of course. And Wondar is in his bizarro like sex fetish costume.
I still will never get used to this costume.
No, it's absurd. But he's in costume. And let's just point this out. So he's in costume, and Ben Grimm, as he often does when wandering around the 1970s era Marvel universe, is wearing civilian clothes, which include a trench coat and a what the hell do you call it? A pork pie hat.
Yes.
And you know, so the thing is, like, first of all, he's overdressed for the weather.
Yes.
But even if his clothing wasn't enough to draw somebody's attention, and then they'll notice, oh, by the way, his face is made of orange rocks. The fact that he's got Wondar with him, this long-haired hippie in his sex fetish costume with his bare chest, is certainly enough to draw the attention of the people around you.
And you know what? I'm glad you're bringing this up, because I think I've just read comics for so long that I see this stuff and I just immediately accept it as normal.
I mean, I love it. Don't get me wrong. I'm like, but I find it hysterically funny, because it's just like, well, yeah, he's trying to blend in. This is like the Thing is trying to blend in with the regular folks, but he doesn't think to have Wondar wear regular clothes.
I guess maybe the rationale behind this is if he wasn't wearing this clothing, he would maybe explode. I don't know.
Yes,
because somehow this clothing
put a hoodie on the guy.
Explode.
He looks chilly. Put a hoodie on him. He looks chilly to me. Anyway,
yeah, you could just put like a coat over the clothes.
Right. Exactly. Exactly. So basically, he's now talking in little toddler voice. So that's improvement. So he's learning.
Don't you be making fun of my Wondar.
Yeah,
well,
he won your Wondar.
He won a candy from Unky Ben.
I know.
We're only on page 2, Brian.
Yeah, we didn't even get that far. We were tearing this scene apart.
With love. We love it.
Yes.
Anyway,
keep in mind, this character becomes basically Marvel's version of Cosmic Jesus later on.
I know. So does that make Ben Grimm John the Baptist in this?
It does.
Absolutely.
I love it. Ben the Baptist. All right. So Wondar wants some cotton candy, and when Ben goes to get it for him, he foolishly releases Wondar's hand, and he's distracted long enough for Wondar to rip open all the animal cages and begin to let the wild animals out, including a lion, a tiger, and a gorilla.
Oh, my.
And hijinks ensue.
They do. And I will also say, during this entire time where he's ripping these animals, like he's ripping the cages open, he did not let go of that balloon. He kept it to the very last panel.
Just now.
He's petting the lion and he's still got that goddamn balloon.
Yeah.
So then Ben immediately rips off his trench coat because I guess now he doesn't need to be incognito anymore and starts wrestling the animals.
Yep. Which again,
Wondar kind of doesn't like that. He's over there having a temper tantrum, pounding a rock, still holding his balloon.
I would like an animated series of this series.
I would love it. I would absolutely love it.
And Patton Oswalt would have to be the voice of Ben Grimm.
Yes.
I also love this.
You know what? By the way, I don't know if he listens to the show or not, but shout out to Patton Oswalt. He made my 13-year-old son's week a couple weeks ago. My son is enjoying Patton's MODOK miniseries that he's writing for Marvel.
Okay.
And he had a little mini review of it, which I tweeted, and Patton was kind enough to retweet it and to comment back to my son, and it made his week. That was even better than Dee Snider, making him a video for his birthday. So
that is very, very cool.
It's not only Ben and Wondar at the zoo. It's also Steve Rogers, a.k.a. Captain America, and longtime love Sharon Carter. They're out for a day at the zoo as well.
Yeah, longtime love Sharon Carter, who, let me just say that I enjoyed Falcon and the Winter Soldier, but Sharon Carter was disastrously ill-used.
Yes!
CU.
Yes!
Yeah.
Let's
disastrously ill-used.
Mary and I enjoyed the show as well. But, she couldn't understand why I was so enraged about the plot turn for Sharon's character. And I explained to her, Sharon Carter was legit my first crush. 1976, Jack Kirby, Captain America and the Falcon. And she's always been, I think, one of the strongest, best written, most multi-dimensional female characters in Marvel's pantheon of characters. So to see what they did with her in that show, it pissed me off.
Yeah, my hope is that they will realize that error and decide Sharon was playing the long game. But I don't think that's going to happen. And another tangential here is that if you haven't watched the show, there are just a couple of scenes featuring the great Julia Louis-Dreyfus.
Yes.
And I can't think of a better Marvel villain than whatever they're going to do with Julia Louis-Dreyfus because she's brilliant. Anyway,
a third tangential, and I meant to bring it up here on the show weeks ago, and I kept forgetting. Did you catch the name of the scientist in the show who reinvents the super soldier serum?
I don't remember it.
It is our old friend Gorilla Man from the Headmen.
Are you kidding me?
I'm completely serious. He doesn't have his gorilla body. He's just a human in the show. But yeah, it's Negan, the from the Defenders.
That is fantastic. just the thought that he had his real gorilla body hidden somehow. In my mind, that character he has his gorilla body, or he soon will. I love that. I love the thought that exists in my head now. All right, look. So basically, Captain America goes in. He takes the time while wild animals are potentially eating people at the zoo. He takes the time to change into his costume because somehow that's worth people dying for, and then he goes to investigate. And Sharon's running behind him, and she apparently waited for him to change. And basically, he finds Ben getting the animals under control, so that's fine. But then there are some 2-bit hoodlums who are stealing money from the concession stands, and Cap attacks them like they're Hydra.
Yes. He probably literally broke the spines of these two gentlemen in this one panel here.
Yeah. Yeah. And also, can I just say, and again, I know that I'm being petty here, but you're this 2-bit hoodlum who just robbed a concession stand. Captain America just took down 2 of your besties with a back-breaking, like, full-body attack. And Cap has his shield, and he's Captain America. And you think, oh, I'm some kid at the Bronx Zoo, and I'm going to pull a knife on Captain America and say, crawling is what you'll be doing after I'm done with you. I mean, who would do... Let's say for a moment this was real. How could anyone be like, yeah, I'm going to pull a knife on Captain America?
I'd pull a knife on Captain America.
You would not. You would not. You would get on your knees and hand him the knife. I'm sorry, Captain. Thank you, sir. May I have another? Is what you would say.
What I love about this scene, the one thing, no matter what fighting discipline you learn around the world, the one thing you are always taught: charge a gun, never, ever, ever charge a knife. What does Cap do here? He charges the fucking knife in the knife.
Well, no, what he does is he backhands the bitch because he's Captain America. Are you kidding? Are you kidding? Captain America's not worried about this guy's knife. Never mind his costume has some kind of chainmail element to it. Never mind he's Captain America. Anyway. Then if we didn't have enough superheroes at Superhero Day at the zoo, yes, Namorita shows up with her roommate. And this was my other favorite thing about this issue. Because Namorita, who, for those listeners who may not remember, Namorita was the one who initially met and befriended Wundar, and then with her cousin Namor, dumped the problem of Wundar at the feet of Ben Grimm.
That's right.
She shows up and is upset because Ben is yelling at Wundar and mad at him for releasing the animals. And she's like, don't be such a hard ass, Ben. Don't worry. I've now moved to New York with my roomie here, and the two of us, we will take Wundar and we will raise him as our own.
Yep.
And Ben's like, cool, take him off my hands, honey. Thank you.
It was just the convenient way to get Wundar out of the issue.
Exactly. Out of the series for the moment. Like to remove Wundar from Ben's problem, so he goes off with Captain America and Sharon Carter. He's like, hey, come on back to the Baxter Building for a cup of coffee.
And then Gerber's like, you know what, Sal? I haven't given you enough characters to draw.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
Because they get to the Baxter Building, and you expect Reed Richards, but Medusa of the Inhumans is just there hanging out as well.
Right. Well, I suspect Medusa was a member of the FF at this point.
Was she? Okay.
There was a period where she was a member of the FF, and that makes sense. So it's Medusa and Reed hanging out, and I also like the fact that Ben is incredibly misogynist here, which is typical of the era. Mm-hmm. Because he says, he gets Reed's attention, and he says, well, if you're done, how about Medusa getting us some coffee?
Yeah.
Let's get the Queen of the Inhumans to get us some coffee. Good job, Ben. Aunt Petunia raised you right, my friend.
And meanwhile, while that's all going on, Reed's is just working on this time machine. It's like one panel. He's like, yeah, I think I figured out Dr. Doom's time machine. All right, let's go get some coffee now.
Right. So they're sitting around, and Ben accidentally hit a switch on Dr. Doom's time machine because he's a big lug.
Yep.
And I feel it, Ben. I'm with you. And then they hear a scream from the other room when they're relaxing with their coffee and Ben smoking his cigar.
They didn't even get the coffee. The scream happens and Ben just smashes the tray to the ground.
Yeah.
He has no regard for the work these women have put in to help them.
Exactly. Yes, let's send one of the premier S.H.I.E.L.D. agents and the Queen of the Inhumans into the kitchen where they belong to make us some coffee. And listen, I understand that, Gerber was writing from the perspective of a man of the 70s, and he was raised the way he was raised and all that stuff. I get it. I was there. I remember. But also, you'd think with these characters, it would have occurred to him. I don't know. I'm going to stop. I'm moving on. But Matt, introduce us to our next character who shows up.
Right, so they hear this scream, and Reed, Cap, and Ben, they go running into the room, and there's this woman there. And I gotta say, costume designs on a scale of 1 to 10.
What is your rating?
Oh boy, this thing. I don't. What I'm trying to find the panel that has her name in it. Do you guys remember what her name was?
I don't offhand, but I'll summarize.
Well, she's from the future.
Right.
She's from the year, what was it, 3014.
That's right. Which, as longtime listeners will remember, we have been to the Marvel Universe of 3014 before, when the Defenders teamed up with the Guardians of the Galaxy against
so her name
Alien.
is Taryn.
Alien conquers the Badoon.
Yes. Her name is Taryn.
Taryn, yes.
Yeah.
So, yeah, she's there, and she's freaking out because she was brought to a time period where all these superheroes are still alive. Because she even says, like, this has to be fake. You guys died 1,000 years ago. And she sees current day New York and faints.
Right. And also, Captain America in 3014 is the symbol of liberty and freedom to the humans who are trying to fight against their Badoon overlords.
Yep.
Let's not forget the Guardians of the Galaxy actually named their spaceship the Captain America.
Captain America, exactly.
Yep.
Yes. So, anyway, Medusa and Reed operate the time machine to send Captain America, Sharon Carter, Taryn, and the Thing into 3014. We know things are not going to go well. They arrive in 3014.
No, wait. I'm stopping you.
Okay.
You're glossing over the Thing's inherent misogyny again. They're on the time platform.
I caught it the first time. What is he saying here?
They're on the time platform, and the Thing looks over at Captain America in front of Sharon Carter and says,
"Oh, yeah.
Are you sure about bringing her along, Cap?" And she tells him she's had enough of his bullshit. She says, "I'm a trained SHIELD agent, Mr. Grimm. I can take care of myself."
Yeah.
Yep.
Exactly. So anyway, they end up in 3014. They don't ask Taryn to make them coffee now that, So in 3014, let's just set this up. In 3014, the Badoon have taken over the Earth, and they have transformed a whole bunch of humans into their sort of slave army called Zoms, short clearly for zombies, right?
Yep.
And as soon as they arrive, the Zoms attack them, and there's a big battle scene, with the 4 of them fighting the Zoms.
And Sharon can indeed handle herself in multiple panels here.
She can. Yeah. And they come to the conclusion that fighting them is almost futile because they must have like their pain nerves like canceled out because they keep getting back up. So then Ben comes to the conclusion that, well, the only way then to defeat them is we have to break every single bone in their body.
So they can't get up. Ben, you could just break their legs. I'm just...
No, it's clobbering time, Chris. You have to break everything.
I know. I'm just, I'm pretty sure if Ben hit you hard enough once, it would break every bone in your body. So
yeah, regardless if I could feel pain or not.
Right. Anyway, then this big monster with iron jaws comes in.
I love the iron jaws.
Yes, me too. And that was no doubt influenced by maybe not by Jaws from the James Bond movie Moonraker. Anyway, basically they're captured, and Sharon and Captain America and Ben Grimm are captured by the Zoms and the big rock dude, a big iron-jawed monster dude. And Taryn is left free. And this is clearly a setup for our next issue, which is Marvel 2-in-1 presents The Thing and Guardians of the Galaxy. Not the Guardians of the Galaxy that people are familiar with from the MCU.
The real Guardians of the Galaxy.
Right, the real Guardians of the Galaxy. If you're old men like me and Brian. So I think in order to keep up with our numbering, Brian, we should continue.
Okay. So then
and go on to... Go ahead.
Yeah, we're transitioning to Marvel Team Up issue number 4 featuring Spider-Man and the X-Men together.
and continuing to feature Morbius, the living vampire, carrying on from last issue. Now, again, to point out, this is written by Jerry Conway, drawn by Gil Kane, with inks by Steve Mitchell. And the interesting thing here is the era in which this took place. So firstly, it's the first issue of Marvel Team Up that doesn't co-star the Human Torch. It's also taking place in the era after which the initial run of the X-Men comic book had taken place, but before the Uncanny X-Men run that began with Giant Size X-Men #1 began. So we really only have 4 X-Men plus Professor X, because Hank McCoy, the Beast, is off doing research at the Brandt Corporation in his own adventure that appeared in the Amazing Adventures comic book series. And that is the story in which he became the furry version of the Beast, or in my mind, the much better version of the Beast.
Yes.
So, setting the stage.
Okay.
Right. So we open with, it's after our last issue, and Peter Parker is having dreams of fighting Morbius. And his roommate, Harry Osborn, this is Harry before he becomes the Green Goblin, wakes him up from this nightmare. And we see that Peter is still sick. You'll remember in last week's episode, he seemed like he had the flu. He's still shaking. He's still sweating ice, he says. He says he doesn't need a doctor. He just needs sleep and a lot of rest.
Yes. Which Osborn keeps telling him he's nuts not going to see a doctor.
Right.
I also love them. Before Spider-Man swings into action, there's these 3 panels here where he's just emoting to himself. And then we have like the one speech bubble, which indicates that he's screaming because it's all jagged edges and exclamation points galore. He's like, I am the wall crawling Spider-Man. I'm like, your roommate is like a room away.
He's just outside the door.
Yeah. He left not 30 seconds ago.
Right. Exactly. I will point out that on the previous page, the third to last panel where he's sort of looking up at Harry.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I love that panel. That's everything I love about Gil Kane wrapped into one panel. The expression on his face is so great.
It is.
I like the lighting and the color choice. Yeah.
Just taking a moment to appreciate that. But anyway, they're all going to be looking for Professor Hans Jorgensen, who was once Michael Morbius's colleague. And Jorgensen is looking into Morbius's files, trying to figure out what happened to him. And he's remembering that Morbius said he'd develop an anemia forestalling enzyme compound, which would reverse a certain form of leukemia. And yes. Morbius did. He's reading that file. And Jorgensen apparently is smart enough to realize what the effect on the patient will be. But Morbius, who invented it, clearly was not smart enough.
That's right.
Yeah, Jorgensen figures this out in like literally a minute with no equipment, no testing, no nothing. He's like, oh, yeah, that's not good.
Yeah.
What else is not good is Morbius himself shows up, comes through the window, which, would just happen to be left open.
Or open windows, yep.
Yep. And he kidnaps Jorgensen. His intent here is that Jorgensen will help him regain his humanity. But Morbius isn't the only one that's shown up looking for him. Spider-Man and Jorgensen's secretary both go up to the office at the same time looking for him as well. She sees Spider-Man in the office. She passes out and faints.
Which of course leads to a Daily Bugle headline. Go ahead.
Yeah. I love this. Always happens to Spider-Man, and I guess that was a running thing through like the 60s and 70s where he would just show up and then he's the bad guy.
Yep.
Right.
Yeah. And I also love the panel where she's like, she's in like this dark void and like her skin's all purple and she's just like, I got to talk to that guy. He's just making so much noise all the time. I'm like, what is he doing up there? Like, he's just a college professor.
Right. Well, maybe he just has all these raves,
That's true.
So Spider-Man is blamed, and we cut to Professor Charles Xavier reading the Daily Bugle. So clearly Xavier's taste in news is less than you would think, given his intellect. So he's reading the Daily Bugle, and he's concerned about Jorgensen, who happens to be an old friend of his. And Jorgensen had previously shared his concern about his colleague and student, Michael Morbius.
I just want to pause. Jorgensen really got around.
Yeah.
Yes.
Reed Richards, Charles Xavier.
Yeah,
Morbius,
exactly.
Spidey.
I feel like we're missing out on the opportunity to do a Hans Jorgensen comic.
Yeah, what?
It's just Jorgensen hanging out with all of the characters we're familiar with in the Marvel Universe, and he does nothing. He's just like, yeah, but everybody thinks he's so fucking cool.
No, he figures the shit out in like a panel. Like he cures Banner in a panel. Next panel, he cures Ben Grimm.
In one issue, he solves all of Marvel's problems.
Yeah, exactly. I love that. That's a what if. What if Hans Jorgensen had confidence? There's no more Marvel Cinematic, no more Marvel Universe because he cures them all. All right. Anyway.
Yes.
Professor Xavier. Okay. Do we need to go through who the X-Men are?
We do not. We've had them.
No.
We've talked about them on the show before, and I'm sure there's a thing called Google.
So Professor X uses his mental powers to call out to his X-Men. In this era, it's Angel, Iceman, Marvel Girl, a.k.a. Jean Grey, and Cyclops. He tries to get in touch with the Beast, and the Beast is like, sorry, Chuck, I'm out. I'm too busy for your shenanigans.
Yeah, I love that.
Me too.
Because I imagine when they do these panels where you see Professor X's like giant head in the background because he's telepathically talking to him, I always imagine that they're seeing it for real. You know, and then like not Ben Grimm, Beast is just sitting here like, I don't got time for your shit, Professor X. I'm turning into a monster. I can't, like,
right, exactly.
Leave me alone.
Yeah.
Use a phone.
My own things
Jesus.
to worry about. I'm growing hair where there shouldn't be.
Yeah.
Professor.
Use a phone.
Secondary puberty.
So Professor X tells the X-Men, my old pal Hans Jorgensen has been kidnapped by the costume vigilante called Spider-Man. And he gives them his plan. And this is where the issue just starts to fall apart for me. And I think it's my own bias. I don't like this era of the X-Men. I've never cared for this era. I was an uncanny X-Men kid.
This cranky today, Brian.
You know what? I am cranky today.
And I kind of agree with him though, because this whole section, like the entire group of the X-Men can do nothing to stop Spider-Man. Like they're all just seen as bumbling buffoons. And like Cyclops is just shooting his eye lasers at will. Like I can't seem to hit him. He's jumping around. Let me just keep shooting.
Well, yeah, I actually do love the fact that Spider-Man is actually defeating all 4 of these 4 out of 5 original X-Men. Yeah. Including Marvel Girl. There is this fight that goes on for pages. It's actually really cool to look at, and it's kind of, it does well for Spider-Man until Jean Grey is able to get him to get him into a telepathic hold, basically. But I also want to point out one thing, just in case you didn't notice, and that is the product placement. Because shortly after this, in October of 1972, Marvel launched its own Doc Savage comic book series based on the classic Kenneth Robeson pulp hero Doc Savage. And in the background, in this one panel, you see a billboard, and all it says in big letters is, Doc Savage is coming.
Oh, now that is interesting, because in the original, what are you reading? A collected trade version?
I'm reading Masterworks.
Okay, because in the original floppy, it's an advertisement for the Marvel Super Special, the Beatles story. The rock group, the Beatles.
Really?
Yeah.
That's fascinating.
Interesting.
That's really fascinating. Cool. I wonder I wonder if that's I wonder if the Beatles, the absence of the Beatles there is a licensing thing.
It has to be, right?
Yeah. Or maybe that we'll have to look into it, because I wonder which one, because I think that the Doc Savage name might be the licensing issue here.
That's more likely, yeah.
Yeah.
Although, but then why would Doc Savage be in the Masterworks reprint rather than the Beatles?
Yeah, that's a good question. I wonder if that's ever been covered. I'm gonna look it up right now.
All right.
Anyway, but so continue.
Yeah. So as Chris said, while he's looking it up, there's a huge fight, and they capture Spider-Man. Jean puts him in this psychic coma, allowing Professor X to probe his mind. I've never ever been comfortable with Professor X doing this.
No, me neither.
But basically we get, another recap of Morbius's origin and, the Lizard and Six-Armed Spider-Man, etc. We've been all through that before, but long story short, Professor X determines that Michael Morbius is our enemy, not Spider-Man.
And I love that he decides this after he sicks his team on my X-Men, go defeat Spider-Man.
Oops.
And then he's like, oh wait, it's not his fault. Sorry.
Yeah. Guys, I can't find anything in a quick Google. I can't find anything about that question. I think we should reach out to Roy Thomas if we can get in touch with him, and ask him if he knows the answer. He was the editor on this.
Roy, or if she listens, because I know we do have folks at Marvel who listen. Jen Grunwald, who was in charge of the trade production and the collected volumes at Marvel. Let us know. Because that's curious.
Yeah, I'm really curious now. So we'll have to reach out and find. I know that this is the kind of minutia that many of our listeners move on, guys. This is not interesting to us, but it's interesting to us. God damn it. Anyway, continue.
So Morbius, meanwhile, and this is my favorite part of the issue.
Yeah.
Poor Jurgensen. Professor Jurgensen is still unconscious, and Morbius is like, why? A simple blow stuns him for so long.
This would be really funny, actually, if it ended up, because from the way that Professor Jorgensen's head is twisted, it almost looks like his neck is broken.
Yeah.
This would be a much funnier issue if Morbius was like, why is this guy not waking up? And it's because he broke Jorgensen's neck and doesn't realize the guy's dead.
I can't.
But folks, that would be hysterical.
Yeah.
In my sense of humor.
But sadly, that's not what happened. But then Morbius decides, I think he decides he needs to feed because he's feeling a little weak.
Yep.
And he dives down into an alley, and there's two friends, I guess. And what were they? Were they getting ready to smoke? Is that what it was? Or was one going? No,
they're getting ready to go rob somebody to get.
Yeah, that's what it is.
Yep.
Morbius does what he does.
Their knives. Yeah.
Yeah. Morbius does what he does, and while that attack's going on, Archangel's up in the sky, and he hears the screams.
Now, he's not Archangel, you young man, you.
I found that curious, too. Matt knows him automatically as Archangel rather than Angel.
Everyone out there listening has to realize I grew up reading comic books in what's known as the Dark Age of comics, where it was like the 90s, where there were so much of it printed and a lot of it didn't make any sense. And there were maybe like 3 or 4 good stories that happened. And characters from the past became different people. And it's not the greatest time to be alive being a comic book reader, but it's what I had to deal with. So.
But at least you have this.
Yeah. That's true.
Anyway, he was Angel, but continue.
He was Angel, okay. So he's flying through the sky, he hears the screams, and he comes to the alley, and there's Morbius. Basically, I believe he just fed, because now he's got his fangs. I believe, was that a thing that stuck with him? Like, after he fed, he was more powerful, and then he actually had fangs in his mouth?
Well, I think he had fangs in order to feed, but maybe they grew longer once he's dead. So then, much like Spider-Man, Morbius absolutely demolishes the X-Men. Yeah.
Like, cracks Iceman's head into a wall.
Yeah.
He's throwing trash cans at people. Like, it's ridiculous.
Yeah.
And the whole time, Cyclops is doing the same thing he did with Spider-Man. He's just laying on the ground, shooting his eye lasers at will.
Yeah.
And Morbius gets Jean Grey. And he's, because he's like, well, there's no way you're going to shoot your eye lasers at me, essentially, if I've got Jean Grey hostage. And Cyclops is just basically tells him, oh, you're wrong, and does this trick shot and hits Morbius in the back of the head with a laser. Somehow not killing him.
Yeah.
I always found it funny, the inconsistency of how strong Cyclops' lasers are. Yeah. Like 1 second they're blowing up buildings, and then the other one it's just a light tap on the back of the head.
But he apparently can control them. I mean, this is a thing in this era. I also find it interesting that he can bank shot his eye blast off of a mirror.
Yeah, and the mirror doesn't break.
And the mirror doesn't break, but he could blast it through a wall. So, but it is about his control, I think. Yeah. He has been training.
He has been.
Yes.
It's very true.
Like, if there were an Optic Blast Olympic team, he would make the team.
I'd probably be the only one on that team.
Anyway.
So, yeah. Go ahead, guys.
Well, so Morbius is defeated. The Angel grabs him, and they're taking him back to Westchester to be examined. Then we have Professor X and Professor Jorgensen. That's the team up right there.
Yeah.
Yep.
And Spider-Man comes to, and basically what we find out is that Spider-Man was dying. He had days, perhaps hours to live because of an infection that he'd received when Morbius had bitten him, or when he ended up having 6 arms, and Morbius' first appearance in Amazing Spider-Man, I think 101. And he was dying as a result of that. And thankfully, Professor Jorgensen, the one guy who could heal him, has been rescued and does save him from this toxin that's killing him.
Real quick side note, Chris, I forgot all about this ending.
Oh, I want to talk about this ending.
This ending is gold.
Well, again, it reminds me of Reed Richards. Like, Reed Richards is so smart, he can do anything except make Ben Grimm no longer the Thing.
Right.
So Professor Jorgensen can deal with the toxins from Morbius in Spider-Man's system, but not in Morbius's system.
Yes.
But Matt's right. So, okay, Spider-Man was perhaps hours from death.
Yes.
But because of Jean Grey, who was the one who found Professor Jorgensen in time, they all tell Spider-Man, Jean's the one that saved you. And Professor Jorgensen says, yeah, if she hadn't found me, I would have never performed the necessary computations in time. How does Spider-Man thank these people?
He just leaps off the table, kisses Jean Grey, and then smashes out a window.
Yeah. Well, and again, can we talk about those two things, though? There are two things to talk about.
Yeah, I know, but it's the sequence. It's just so great. And then when I was reading this, I was like, Spider-Man found the only closed window so far.
Well, maybe that explains it. Maybe he doesn't intend to smash a window. He's just so used to every window in the Marvel Universe being open. That may be the thing. Because I just feel like it's... so firstly... He does, like Adrian Brody winning Best Actor and running up on stage at the Oscars and unbidden kissing Halle Berry, who's presenting him with the Oscar, which today would not happen because we're much more aware of consent now than we were even at that time a few years ago. And so he just goes and he grabs Jean Grey and kisses her, which in the tradition of every movie that Conway had seen as a kid, Jean Grey is totally distracted and tickled by the fact that Spider-Man kissed her. She's clearly, appreciative of that. Spider-Man crashes out the window. He makes his exit. He could go out the door. He could open the window, but he crashes out the window. And no one seems to be troubled at all by the fact, never mind that he kissed Jean without consent, because this is the 70s, but he crashes out the window, and Professor X is like, he's thinking about Jorgensen and Morbius, and is this really over? Not bothered at all by the fact that what is going on?
That's what I said. My theory is I think Spider-Man thought that window was going to be open. And he's
so are they unbothered because they're like, ha ha, joke's on you, Spider-Man. That window was closed.
There's like a billion questions, like, who's paying for this window? Is Spider-Man injured? Like, why does Jean Grey look happy about all this?
Right. But just like, they're looking out the window as Spider-Man swings away on his web. Also, what's he swinging on? Because if they're at the Westchester estate of Professor X, there are only trees out there, but that's a whole other thing. But Professor X is completely... I know if some asshole dove through one of my windows to make a splashy exit because he just kissed the girl and he'd seen too many Errol Flynn movies, I'd be like... I would not be just, like, pondering.
Well, it's like not only that, but, like, Scott did nothing. He's just standing there along with Angel, like, watching him swing away. He didn't even curse at him or anything.
Yeah. Anyway. All right, let's wrap this crap up, boys.
Okay.
Yes. Matt, once again, why don't you tell folks about your brand new book and where they can get it?
I have a brand new book coming out. Should be around June 15th. It's titled Melancholia. It'll be coming out from Death's Head Press. You can get pre-orders right now, and you can also buy that book when it releases directly from Death's Head Press at deathsheadpress.com.
Awesome. And also, before we end the show, I want to give a shout out. Listener Christopher Ryan, who does the Tell the Damn Story podcast. He tweeted us, his cat, Isabella Crumple, enjoys listening to Defenders Dialogue. He says that she sits there transfixed for most of an episode. And he gave us 11 seconds of video. If you follow Defenders Dialogue on Twitter, and if you don't, you need to unfuck that. But if you follow us on Twitter, you can see the video, and you can see the cat. She's just sitting there in love with your voice, Chris. So I think...
Well, who wouldn't be?
Yeah, I think...
Also, Brian, I actually think that she's enduring my voice, and she's just sitting there waiting for you to do your Hellcat voice.
No.
Is that... Well, in that case, then it's... Isabella Crumple. It's me, Patsy Walker, Hellcat, the worst character Marvel's ever had.
You stop that, Keene.
Stop that.
I think you should give Isabella a very special Excelsior.
To Isabella Crumple, Excelsior, true feline believer.
We'll see you next week, folks.
Defenders Dialogue. You can listen to this episode and all previous episodes for free on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, YouTube, Google Play Music, and wherever else podcasts are available. Defenders Dialogue is written and produced by Brian Keene and Christopher Golden. Our theme music is by Xander Harris. Our engineer is Matt Wildasin. Check out his books on Amazon.com.